IWAGS community, Hal Hargrave here alongside my wife, Catie Hargrave. We're here at Casa de Hargrave in our bedroom. It is a bizarre place to think about doing a workout, but for many of us, it's our only option. We are fortunate enough to have a second hand around the house. So what we're demonstrating to you today, which will be a way for you to reduce back pain, shoulder pain, knee pain, leg pain, overall flexibility, range of motion, and circulatory training. We're going to be facilitating from the ground. Mind you, some of you may not have the option to do anything other than on your bed. If you have a sleep number bed, pump it up to something that's very firm, as you will get more effective results. It might be more comfortable to be on something that's more fluffy like a cloud, but with that, we're going to go for results here today. So with that, I'm going to go and I'm going to lay all the way back. Catie's going to be my assistant, and she's going to kind of be my helping hand, guiding us through all these motions. So with that, I'm going to go onto my back. And it's going to be very important throughout the course of this workout for there to be great synergy from, we'll just say, and throughout this workout, we're going to refer to myself as the loved one, so to speak, and the assistant, and in many cases, my conduit to living life to its fullest. But Catie and Hal here will refer to the one on the ground, the one with paralysis, the loved one, and then the caregiver assistant, so to speak. And so with that, kind of going to be an idea here early on to just be very mindful about what's going on. There's going to need to be good synergy and communication throughout this. And first thing we want to suggest to you guys is everything we're going to tell you right now is merely a suggestion, and let's just leave it at that. These are not things coming from medical professionals, physical therapists, or what have you.
I'm definitely not trained.
This is a husband and wife team, and she's very modest when saying that because she does have an athletic training background. But we are not suggesting you to put yourself in harm's way, for you to put yourself in a position where you might be subject to passing out because of blood pressure issues, going through too far of range of motion to risk any bone breaks or fractures. So do things within reason. Take what we're saying with a grain of salt to do it in your own innovative way.
You know your body best, so do what works for you, and if what works for us works for you, awesome. Or you can just take a little bit of what we do and make it work for you.
So first off here, what we're going to have going is myself, the client, the loved one, really thinking about just opening up their chest, being mindful about the moment and trying to let go of the stress, the angst, the body energy, the tone and spasms, just trying to think about just releasing. Taking deep breaths from a cardiovascular standpoint for C-level and quadriplegic injuries. This might be a bit tougher because of your lack of lung capacity and your inability to use your diaphragm. But we encourage you to try and take deep breaths to rid yourself of any negative energy in your body. And in doing so, it's going to allow your assistant to move your body that much more free. And so as we move kind of semi-quickly through this, Catie is now going to start with picking up my legs, and she's going to grab underneath my heels and put me into a straight leg position with my legs elevated. So this is like kind of like a straight leg deadlift, but we have both legs going right now. And you can kind of see Catie's body positioning. Catie, kind of talk about what you're doing here.
So his feet are really resting on my chest right here. You're going to want to make sure you can see as soon as I let go, his ankles kind of start to roll out. Keep his heels together. I kind of squeeze and hug my arms underneath to help hold the weight of the legs. It helps make it not so heavy and make you get tired faster. So just really use your body to help hold the weight here and keep his ankles in an anatomical straight position.
And Catie's stating something very important, and I speak on behalf of all of us who are living in a chair and have great women like you by our sides, but this is not said with an undue burden, and all of you understand this, that unless you're in a physically capable state, you feel kind of helpless to be of any assistance out of worry of hurting yourself. So Body positioning here is so important for the assistant so they're not hurting their back, their shoulder. And so Catie does a very good job of listening to her body as well. But the importance of this position is really just to provide length on the posterior chain of the body, namely the hamstrings. So just getting the body into a really lengthened position. And now that we've kind of settled in there, what Catie is now going to do, she's going to bend my knees up to my chest, and we're going to work on stretching the glute and the lower back. And so for those of you with lower back pain, this is your safe haven. As the client, loved one, you are thinking about just relaxing and really absorbing this stretch here. And so what Catie's doing, she's using her chest, loading into the bottom of the feet, and really using her body weight here just to load. And she's only going to a range of motion where she feels resistance and not much beyond that. And so Catie might give me a break and she might come back out and then reload back into me again. And so again, stretching the butt and the glute area into the low back. And this is such an area of acknowledgement for people with spinal cord injuries because of the decompression of the spine at all times. Whenever we're sitting in a chair for 13 to 15 hours a day, it's in constant compression. So anytime we can provide length or decompression or traction, incredibly beneficial for the body. So there we went through that. We had already went through the lengthening of the hamstrings, and now we're going to go into what's called windshield wipers. And so for the loved one, you are going to try to think about rotating the legs back to the midline. What is Catie and the assistant doing? And they are thinking about obviously spotting the outside of the heels, making sure the ankles are still good. And what she's going to do is help me rotate my knees to one side. And I am thinking about trying to slowly go down. And then from here, rotating with my core and my right oblique back to center. And so now we'll go the other way, not letting the knees hit the ground, rotating back to center, now using my left oblique. And also you can do this eccentrically, where I think about resisting her as she's going that way. So now Catie's going to go this way. I'm going to think about holding here straight into the center. So this becomes very tough for her now for her to go over. Catie can put her hand on the outside of this knee to provide more pressure if she would like. And we slowly go. Once we get close to the bottom, I'll let go and then help rotate back to the center. So what is that good for? That is good for rotational movement. Some of you who might be doing that might get a pop in the low back. It might be advised against for you not to do it if you are maybe a L level injury or maybe a T10 to T12 level injury because of the lower back rotational movement being inhibited by rods, plates, screws, etc. And so with that now, we are going to go all the way down to one side. And what we're going to do here is Catie is going to take, we have right here is an Eric's pad. So we're going to take this Eric's pad. Some of you that don't have an Eric's pad, maybe you have a pillow. And what we're going to do with the Eric's pad, we're going to put it between the knees. And so this is very beneficial because it's going to prevent from knees knocking against each other, which could eventually create a pressure sore over time. So what's going to go on here, Catie's looking for 90-degree angles at the hips up here, as well as at the knee and the hamstring right here down to the lower ankle. So two 90-degree angles, and what's going to go on here is Catie is going to spot right behind this hip. So she's going to get her body right up against this hip to make sure I don't rotate back. And you see with her left hand, it's on top of this knee, pushing down into the ground. So what I'm going to think about doing here is isometrically now isolating the core, and I'm going to think about rotating back to center. So driving this left shoulder back into the ground and using my core to rotate this way, almost as if I was going to roll. This could be something that you do put a set or a rep limit on if you're just doing it for the sake of time. And so maybe I'll do 20 of these. So rotating 1, 2, 3, 4, we go all the way up to 20. And maybe just to utilize this position as something where we can be effective with this position with something else, I am then going to do upper spinal floor twist. For those of you that maybe have good tricep function, you can stay locked out all the way through this motion, and you're going to sweep this hand over to the other hand. When doing so, for those of you that lack tricep function, maybe getting the hand behind the head. Catie, the assistant, her job again to block this hip so I don't rotate out. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to take this elbow and drive it down towards that knee. And so this is working on, again, rotational core movement. And we're really isolating here and not using the momentum of a swinging arm. We're really trying to isolate through the core. So again, rotating over. And so Catie can provide help if I need the help on the back by pushing me over, or she can provide resistance with me going back by here resisting as I come back, or resistance coming back this way on top of the shoulder as you see here. So resistance, and that becomes very tough there. So these rotational core movements, what are they good for? Well, they're good for loosening up the low back to loosen up low back pain. And also they're good for strengthening the core. And any rotational core movements, whether it's sitting in the chair, reaching for things, everyday activities, and even just core stability for driving in everyday practices. So with that, we're going to swing back over and come back to center, Catie. We can take out this Eric's pad, again, or your pillow if that's what you had access to. And so we're going to come back to center, and Katie's going to plant my feet here. And we're going to do what's called bridging now. And so what was really good about what we just did is rotational movements oftentimes fire up the core. And so with that, I can use that to my advantage for having better lateral hip stability here as we go into a bridge. And so a bridge, essentially what this is going to be for is, again, working on the posterior chain, loosening up the low back and tapping into the hamstrings, and or rather not the hamstrings, but the glutes and the butt. And what we're going to try to do is elevate the butt off the ground up towards the ceiling. So here, Catie is going to close the chain for me. And Catie, talk about what you're doing with your body positioning and where your hands are.
So his heels are as close to his butt as I can get without putting too much pressure. And then my legs are on either side of his feet here. And I'm making sure that his ankles are not going to roll out. It's a good way to break an ankle. So his feet are as close together as possible, and my legs are squeezing his ankles so that my hands can be up here on top of his knees, and to keep everything straight and in a good position.
So we'll give you a demonstration really quick, and then we'll tell you about an everyday practice that we use it for. So we'll go rep 1 here, and Catie is going to help by driving down the knees into the ground. I'm going to think about lifting my butt, squeezing my butt cheeks, and lifting my hips up and off the ground for a hip extension.
So pull his knees towards your chest.
And down and into the ground. So again, I'm thinking about squeezing, lifting up here. So for us, we actually use this motion in an everyday sense to help get me dressed in the morning. We'll have one person on my lowers and then somebody standing to my side that will help pull up my shorts or my pants, and it's kind of me being an active part in getting ready in the morning. And so again, we'll go here and we'll go again. And what's good about this is you can really go to exhaustion here until the body no longer allows it. Listen to your body, but for me, I know when I go to exhaustion here, I've really gotten the most out of this. I've contracted my glutes, and in doing so, you would be so interested to know that your posterior chain is all connected to each other. You know, your upper back pain usually is derived from something else, whether it starts in the traps, the top of the shoulders, everything pulls into each other. So because I'm always in a seated position, like all of you watching this, in a wheelchair, it is all a vicious cycle of being in a flexion position while in the wheelchair. The shoulders are rolled in. Oftentimes the hamstrings become very tight because they are flexed under. The hip flexors right here are in a flex position with the knees up in the chest. The only thing that's not in flexion, what's in extension, is actually the ankle joint. Most times is in plantar flexion, trying to push off of the foot plate. But with that, everything that we've gone through here so far is really trying to work on antagonist movements and opposite movements to that of the wheelchair to get the body opened up and in extension, because oftentimes pain is associated directly with lack of movement, believe it or not. And you think about the geriatric populations and some of our grandparents, when they start to slow down is oftentimes when they start to see most of their back pain. So if we can move in all three planes of motion and isolate muscle groups, we are going to put ourselves not only in the best position to feel less pain, but we're going to keep range of motion intact. We are going to keep the body in a place where we're keeping muscle mass in the body to reduce rather than have reduction of pressure source and reduce secondary complications altogether. So with that, we did our bridges. And so now, Catie, let's go all the way out, and we are going to get now into kind of a straight leg setup. And so first, Catie is making sure that my body is stacked from head to toe. So I'm straight here. She's looking at my lower body from hips to knee and knee to ankle. And Catie, kind of what are you looking for down here?
I'm just making sure that his ankles down here aren't rolled out or rolled in. A good way to help with that is to bring them together and then pull toes towards Hal's head. And
so Catie also, and something she didn't acknowledge, was kind of the association of where my leg bag is at. And so I use a condom catheter. I wear my bag on my left leg, and I do wear it at my calf, and some of you wear it up on the thigh. For me, it's most conducive to living because of my active workout regimen and how much my quads are getting palpated. Generally, I have electrodes on my legs, and also having the bag on the lower leg, even though it is exposed and it's not the most fashionable thing in the world, it is covered by a bandana, but it does make it easier to drain, especially if I was going to be wearing pants. But here, Catie, you're going to help me sit up. And so this, God bless my wife, she's very limber, very active. She can be an integral part in helping me sit up. If you had a secondary hand, they can come and help lift up under the shoulders. But Catie and I are going to show you how we do it by ourselves. So she's going to get into a low squat position. And Catie, what are you doing here to ensure that you're not going to hurt your back?
So I'm really loading in my legs right here, and then I'm locking out my arms and pulling in my shoulders and squeezing my shoulder blades together, and then I'm simply just walking back. And then I'm gonna let Hal grab onto my knees right here, and then my hands shift to this on his back. So now he is able to not fall backwards, and then he can move his arms to help him stay seated.
And for those of you that maybe were able to sit up on your own or find your way up on your own, you can certainly do that. But having the help of my wife is also great. And so now I'm in a long seated position. And so what Catie's going to do is she's going to come behind me. And what's going to go on here is we're going to stretch the hamstrings and the posterior chain of the low back. So again, good to relieve low back pain. And we're just going to ease into this. And you're probably wondering, well, why don't we just start with this? Well, it's because all of the movement prep that we did prior, that we talked to you about prior, is going to make getting in this position much easier. So now I'm going to be a helping hand by trying to reach out towards my ankles. And Catie, watch her hand placement here. And Catie, talk to them about what you're doing.
So again, I'm going to make it really easy on my body. My arms are extended out. I'm going to really just push my body weight into his back to help him stretch. And then he likes when I kind of walk down the back to get to the lower back to help him get a deeper stretch. And again, I'm just pushing my weight into his body. I'm not using a ton of strength right now, really at all.
And so what that will do, it's going to loosen up the hamstrings. And again, the hamstrings do pull into the glute, and the glute pulls into the low back, creating for a lot of back pain. So you might do that for several minutes until the body finally gives up and you can get to full length. And now Catie can get and position herself right up against my back. And what we're going to do is I'm going to think about rolling up onto my pelvis. I'm going to think about squeezing my shoulder blades together and posturing up to get as straight up as I can. So we're going to roll up, and look what Catie's doing. She's pulling with her hands on my anterior deltoids, my shoulders, down and in to open up my chest.
So we really want this part of his body to come right onto my stomach.
So the client, the loved one, should think about squeezing the shoulder blades together, squeezing the low back and firing the low back to arch up and assist as much as possible. Catie's knees are grounded in my low back, trying to provide pressure to keep me as upright and stacked as possible. So we roll up. And for some of you, this might be a really tough movement because when you open up your chest and you're in this bent leg position, you're oftentimes going to really be susceptible to blood pressure issues. And you're going to have shortness of breath. You're going to become very lightheaded. Opening up that body is very difficult. And there's actually a biological response that goes on where we can kind of equate that to that of a straw. And when you have a straw that gets pinched off, fluid can't get through it. And so biologically speaking, that's kind of what goes on the body when you open up. And because we're bent off, fluids aren't able to get back up to the brain, and it makes us have shortness of breath, and we become very lightheaded, so to speak. So the best way to do that, kind of collapse over, put pressure on the diaphragm, and give yourself some time to reacclimate, and then we can get back at it again. So we open up, boom. This is great. And so from here, now Katie's going to come back in front, and when she does, I'm going to get stable again, putting my arms back behind me. If you have a second hand, you can't do so, do that, or just stay forward the whole time if you don't have a second hand and you can't get your arms behind you. So what Katie's going to do with my lower extremities now, we're going to get me into a split leg position. And so what we're going to do here, we can really go a wide variety of options here. But namely, we could start with me getting flat on my back and Catie working on femur rotations. And so what she would do, Catie would position her body on the inside of the knee that she is going to try and isolate. So she's going to work on the right leg here. She gets over on this side of the left knee. What she's going to do is hand above and below my knee. And so we can ensure the integrity of the knee joint. And so she's going to roll in and roll out. And so we're going to roll out here. This is working on the internal rotators and the external rotators, trying to get them to loosen up. And you see the other leg trying to react. What I can tell you is at the end of this, they will be working unilaterally and they won't try to kiss each other, so to speak, and mimic each other. So another thing Catie can do, she can even straddle over this leg like this, and that's perfect. So now that leg's isolated, and now we just isolate this leg. So we go boom, and we're rolling in and out. And so we're working on internal rotators, working on the adductors here as well. And ultimately, this is to help me get into a split leg position. Another thing that we could do from this position as well is me laying on my back, her bending my knee up to 90 and really stretching my adductors out. And so you want to show them that? Let's show them that. So I'm going to go back onto my back. And so we've worked on internal rotators there. And we're just going to do one leg here at a time. So Katie's going to bend up the knee, and we just have one leg up here. And what she's going to do, she's blocking out this other knee. And actually, if you can position yourself on the inside of the leg, she's going to use her left arm to rotate out that leg, and she's going to use her right hand and her right arm to push out the left leg. And so we're trying to get them to work independently of each other. And here, working on stretching the inside of the thigh. This is called the adductor. And for the client, the loved one, laying on the ground, what you can be thinking about is either relaxing through this motion or think about firing the abductor, the outside of the leg, and trying to drive it down towards the ground. And so all of these stretches right here are going to be conducive towards opening up the body and getting the body to abduct.
I'm also being really careful of his ankle here again. My knees are hugging his foot and keeping his ankle and foot in an anatomical position just to prevent any kind of stress on that while I'm doing this.
And now that Katie's gone through this, again, you should probably do this on both sides, but for the sake of time today, we did femur rotations on the right leg, and we did kind of opening up the inside of the leg on the left leg. So now, Catie, let's get the body back out into a split leg position, and we'll kind of go through some things here. So here, we're going to let the body relax for a minute. Obviously, when we go out into a full length position, the body tries to react. It doesn't like being in extension. It loves the flexion and being flexed and contracted. And so here, Katie's slowly going to work the legs out wider and wider. And in doing so, this is very good because when I get up into a seated position, a wider base of support creates for more stability. So this is perfect. And so what Catie now can do here is now that we have me out to a full width, she's going to stand up again and she's going to help me sit up. And so my legs will probably try to dive in towards each other. We will correct them once we kind of get to a point where we're both stable and safe again. So now my arms are behind me, and now Catie is going to get my legs into an externally rotated position where the body is anatomically correct here. So we have a wide base of support. I feel my low back starting to loosen up. We've done some rotational movements, so this is all very good. And we're gonna go back and we're gonna do the same thing that we did earlier. Catie's gonna come behind me, push on my low back. We'll just demonstrate this for just a few seconds. For me, I'm getting my elbows on the inside of my knees, and I'm thinking about helping with keeping my legs from rolling in. So Catie's pushing on my low back. And this is all very good. The legs are still fully lengthened, and so this is putting a stretch on the hamstring. And keep in mind, the hamstring is also a secondary hip flexor, as well as a secondary adductor that helps the leg roll in. So really I have a body that's trying to fight against me, but what I'm trying to do here is just relax through this motion and just trying to absorb it so my body will eventually give up, and I can get into a fully relaxed and correct anatomical state. So this is all good. We can let go. And now if we look at my lower body, things are just looking much more as they should. So this is all very good. And so now what we can do from here is Catie can come up right against my back here, and I can work on rotational core movement. So Catie can put one hand over the top in front of this right shoulder, like that. And then she's gonna take this left hand and we're gonna rotate back this way. So she's gonna take the left hand, push on the back of my left shoulder, and we can rotate. And I'm gonna try and just relax and get to my full rotational point. And then I'm gonna try and rotate back against her. Catie's gonna apply pressure still into the back of the left shoulder as I rotate with my left oblique back to center. So boom, and so you can do that for a set number of reps. Again, time and time again, because this left leg is a problem child. We'll get it to readjust. And Catie, we can even use the yoga mat that we have over here and put it in between the legs. So if we want to grab that. This can be a very beneficial piece, or if you have a bolster, so we can put this here. And this can help with keeping the legs from rotating in.
Is that a good spot?
That's good.
Okay. You could also use a pillow, some sort of like foam roller or something that can just put pressure here and keep the legs out to
Definitely.
help you.
And so now what Catie's going to do, we worked on rotational core movement here. Now we're going to work on kind of lower back extension and rotating up on the pelvis. So Catie, if you can grab the red cord. And so this is the red cord. I'll have Catie show it to you. What you might have access to at home would be that of a towel. So the red cord is going to come wrap around my back, and Catie's going to come sit in front of me. She's going to go underneath my arms here. And so we're going to try to position this on the low back. Catie can be on her knees here. And what we're going to do, I have my hands planted for further stability. If you're more advanced, you can do no hands. And I am going to think about rolling up on the pelvis. She's going to think about pulling through the low back. Again, I already feel this, a bit of lightheadedness, and that's from my chest, my stomach opening up. Deep breaths here. Anytime do deep breaths can really help with diaphragmatic assistance and the ability to breathe. So Catie helping with the pull through, and this is creating low back extension. Why is this good? Anytime that we're in a seated position, namely in the wheelchair, we're rolled in. and our lower back is hunched over. So here, thinking about squeezing the scaps and arching the low back and getting through a fully extended position.
I'm also, you can see my arms are locked out and I'm just leaning back. So it's pretty easy on me. If you wanted to work out, you could do a bicep curl, but you get pretty tired pretty fast doing this. So just get comfy. I could even take my feet out from underneath me and sit a little bit more and then go here, and it makes it even a little more comfortable and easy. Also, let's show them with the towel, because this is a pretty special piece of equipment.
Definitely.
You can just take a towel, have it the long way, maybe kind of put it in half, and then use it the same way.
Good demonstration. Same effect too. So this is all good, and something we can also do here, and we'll go back to the red cord just for the sake of kind of demonstration purposes. We can work on an upper body strengthening routine here. And oftentimes we refer to this as the wall routine. And if you want to know what the wall routine feels like, for those of you that are assisting here, or the caregiver, or the WAG, go try this at home yourself. Get your butt and your pelvis as far back up against the wall as you can. Point your toes towards you. So Catie, if you can pull my toe towards me. And what if I was up against a wall, and my back was all the way up against the wall, it makes all of these movements very tough. But here, we're gonna do it with a low back extension. We'll get this up a little higher. Catie's gonna pull through, a little lower, and we're gonna pull through for stability. And I can go through a set of snow angels here, alternating snow angels. I can do scapular retractions at the lower 45-degree T or the upwards 45 degrees. And Catie, talk about your knee positioning here with kind of how you're positioned on the inside of my knees.
So this yoga mat is actually really helping. I'm just trying to be as comfortable as possible just to keep the stress off my body. If you're up here, you're having to really use your back a lot. You're gonna get tired, you're gonna be pretty sore. So I'm just trying to stay comfortable and use my body by leaning back to take the stress off my body as much as possible.
Water is pivotal to life, as it is for speaking and projecting. So
yeah, the talking is a workout in itself.
So with that, other things we can be doing on that routine of pull throughs, arm raises, you can put wrist weights on if you have them. We can do overhead presses as well, or we can do rotation of the rotator cuff. But with that, we're going to take away the red cord now, and we are going to grab a pillow, and we're going to put that in my low back. If you have a bolster, that is even best. And so this is just gold for me. And what I can do, typically you'd have something even larger and more robust, and you simply arch over it. And so Catie would block on the inside of my knees to prevent internal rotation. Body's
Just
going
like
to
that.
respond. So she's going to get my body back into a correct split leg anatomical sound situation down there. And up here, I am arching up and over the pillow. Again, it'd be better if it was more pronounced, or a bolster. And this is just working on opening up the low back. And here with the shoulder blades, I'm just thinking about squeezing and really just feeling myself open up. This is just absolute gold. And it could be the equivalent to you putting a lumbar support in your low back while sitting in the chair. So we could do this flat on the back. We could do this if I was laying on the side to work on opening up one oblique or one side, whether it's the right or left side. But here now I'm going to sit up, and we could move this up to a higher spot on the back, but we're going to remove it all together. And what we're going to do now is we're going to use the yoga mat, or if you want to use a towel, you can use a rolled up towel. And we are going to put this going parallel with my spine. So it's going to go the same direction as my spine, and we're going to push it right down to the low back. And so I'm slowly going to come back, and Catie can help lower me down. And so it's right in my middle of my back, going straight with my spine. And what I'm going to do here is I am just going to just pull myself around this. And Catie can be a great helping hand by pushing into the shoulders and really pronouncing this motion. And so the best thing that we can do here maybe is what we call just some scapular contractions. And so we can do it at the lower 45, we can do it at this straight T level, and then we can go to upper 45 and maybe do 20 scapular squeezes, thinking about squeezing down and in with the scaps and really wrapping around this yoga or towel if that's what you have access to. And in doing so, it's going to open up the chest, it's going to open up your spine, and it's just going to make you feel so much better in terms of your upper body pain in your shoulders and even your low back pain, to just have something that opens you up. So a lot of good things going on here. And also we can do the wall routine here as well. So we can do windshield wipers, we can do alternating, or rather snow angels, alternating snow angels. We can also do rotator cuff rotations here. We can do overhead presses, and if Catie wants to provide resistance, she can grab at the wrist, and as I pull down, this is kind of like a pull down with resistance, and then an overhead press she can resist as I push up as well. And so we can do overhead presses, pull downs. Again, we talked about rotator cuff movements, and then also arm raises. There's a variety of things that we can do here. But now we're going to sit up, we're going to remove the yoga mat. And so now we've done a lot of good things in terms of getting the body to a place where we've stretched, we've really put the body in a very limber state now. So now we're going to go and get onto the stomach. So Catie's going to position me onto the right side of the mat. And before we even do that, we're going to slide me back up on the mat. So Catie will come behind me. I'm going to lower down. And for those of you that only have one hand here, I have function in my biceps. So what I do is I come up here, I contract my biceps. Catie grabs either at my wrists or at my forearms, and she just pulls up towards her to slide me up. And so she did that, and now she's going to stand over. She's going to stand over the top of me, and she's going to position my hips over to one side of the mat. And so she'll do this grab around the hips. We're going to move me over. I move my upper body with it. We're going to move the legs. And now we are going to roll over. And so she can help roll with crossing over that knee. Make sure not to let that knee rolling over slam and hit the ground if you're on pavement. Luckily, we're on carpet.
I've done that before. That's why he's saying it.
And so Catie helping adjust here, and she's going to rotate my hips and move me back over into the middle of the mat. And so also here, what Catie will do, she's going to take the yoga mat and she's going to put it right underneath my ankles. So then my ankles are stable. So she'll lift up both of my feet and just get it right there. Perfect. And so Catie's looking for kind of an anatomical correctness to the body, making sure that my upper body's in alignment, my hip to knee's in alignment, as well as knee to ankle. And so for me here, best thing I can do is I can help her by getting up onto my elbows, or if you don't have the ability to do so, you can have your assistant help plant one elbow at a time. And now that I'm up on my elbows, I'm going to try to get my elbows underneath my shoulders. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do scapula contractions. And so this is a great way to load into the shoulders of the upper body for upper body strengthening for people that are C levels. If you're a T level injury, paraplegic, you can do this on your hands and think about doing scapular decompressions. And what Catie's doing, she's putting her hand there as a reference point. And this is very important for me because it gives me something to acknowledge of what I'm trying to isolate. And it's in between my shoulder blades. I'm trying to squeeze around her hand. And so also from here, what we can do, if I want to break, Catie can come out in front of me, and I'm going to do arm reaches out in front of me. So Catie's in front of me here. I'm going to do one arm at a time. I'm going to reach out. That's a little too far. And then I'll come back in. And so what you want to do is you really want to load as much as you can onto the opposite shoulder. Reach out, pull back, load onto the shoulder, reach out, pull back. And this is very good for shoulder strengthening, shoulder stability, and very good to just load into those scapulas and think about squeezing them together to maintain proper upright posturing. And so with this, something else we could be doing here. So we have books over here. Catie, if you can go grab a couple of them, maybe if you can grab 6 of them. If we have 6, if not, we'll do 4.
I got 6.
And so if we can do 2 equal stacks of books.
I don't know if they're equal, but pretty close.
Pretty close. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to put these out in front of you, Catie, right in front of your knees. And so I'll go out even a little farther. And so I'm going to come all the way down onto my face here. And we're going to do what's called I's, Y's, and T's. And so with that, Catie's going to help me extend my arms and grab at the wrist. We're going to plant on top of the books. And she's going to push down on top of my wrist so my hands don't move. And I'm going to think about lifting up my head and contracting my low back. So contracting the scapulas, lifting up the head, thinking about contracting the low back. And so that's the I position. Now we can move out into the Y position. Out there, perfect. And maybe do till failure here and do several sets as well. Perfect. And then we're going to go all the way out into the T position. And this is very tough because this is a lot of pec that we're talking about here. And so this will come in, and actually if we can bring it in even a bit closer and down more, yep, perfect, and bring it up against the side of the mat. And here's the reason why. So she'll help me get fully extended with my arms. And so this is going to eliminate the tricep. And so ideally, we would have these books even higher, or we can even put them up on the mat. And in doing so, it then allows for me to squeeze and lift my head up that much better. But that's I's, Y's, and T's for you right there. And so now I'm going to get back up onto my shoulders, and I'm going to sit here and just use this opportunity to load in my shoulders while Catie's working on some lower body movements. And so first off, what Catie is going to work on is maybe stretching the quad. And so in doing so, she's going to take my heel and she's going to bend it towards my butt until she feels resistance. And she's slowly going to release off that, but push into that resistance every time she does it. And this is going to be stretching that quad. Notice her hand placement around my ankles.
And then on his foot here too. Helps me get a good grip.
And what can the client be doing here? Well, this is a great opportunity to provide assistance with trying to think about hamstring curling and pulling the heel towards the butt. And so Catie's hand placement is so crucial because she's creating what's called a closed chain. And so closed chains are very important because even for the able-bodied individual, there is a neurological response that happens when we feel a grounding sensation to our body. So when an able-bodied person's walking and they feel the ground, it's easier for them to think about manipulating a step. For me to think about connecting to this because of Catie's hand placement on the bottom of my foot, where all the nerve endings are, I can think about grounding into that and trying to drive the heel towards the butt. And so with that, I'm contracting the hamstring, and also when we get to full range, stretching the quad. So what we can do now, Catie, We can take the towel over here. We're going to put it underneath the quad, and we're going to work on a hip flexor stretch.
Do you want like a yoga mat?
Either way, that or fold it up will work.
Oh.
You see the level of importance here of just communication with your partner about what you're feeling, when too much is too much, how they can help. And so Catie, again here, good job by keeping the knee at 90 degrees. The ankle's good. And I'm feeling the stretch here in that hip flexor. It's elevating the knee off the ground. And if we wanted this to be more pronounced, Catie could lightly push on my low back or right at the hip to provide further stretch. That's good on the hip flexor. So very good there. We'll stop there. And now what we're going to move on to is ankle work. And maybe Catie, you can talk about the ankle work as we go through plantar dorsiflexion, inversion, eversion, and circumduction of the ankle.
So I'm just simply feeling kind of like you would with the quad pulling, Hal's calf and Achilles are really tight right here. So when I push forward here, this really pulls. So I'm not forcing too much, but by kind of doing this repetitively, it will loosen up. Kind of putting a little bit more resistance every time, going back and forth.
So Catie's going until she feels resistance, slowly pushing through it, readdressing it. Plantar and dorsiflexion and inversion, eversion, circumduction, very good for ankle stability, ankle strengthening, and also for having the ankle sit properly while on the foot plate of the wheelchair.
So I'm going to do eversion and inversion.
So this is working on lengthening and strengthening those tendons and muscles around the ankle. She's stretching the calf and the gastroc. And also when she goes into that of dorsiflexion, where the toe is coming up towards the shin, she's stretching that of what's called the tibialis anterior, which is the muscle on the front of the shin. Again, here I could think about, as she's doing this, my scapular contractions. If I have the ability doing it on my own, arm reach outs, loading in to the opposite shoulder.
Eventually Hal's ankle and muscles kind of relax, and then you're able to do circles. Make sure that you do the plantar dorsiflexion first and inversion, eversion. And kind of loosen it up, and then you can do the circles.
So all of these movements very conducive to keeping the integrity of the ankle and the stability in the ankle. And many of you probably every night even wear the boots on your feet to ensure that you're not going to get foot drop. Foot drop is caused by a lack of innervation to the muscle on the front of the shin, the tibialis anterior, to keep the foot in a dorsiflex position. But by doing this, we are making sure that we're getting those muscles to stay alive, come to life. We're creating a neurological response there and a good stretch that for many of us will be less preventative, or rather it'll create prevention for the ankle wanting to jump off of the foot plate when grounded into it on the wheelchair. So ultimately we do this on both sides. We're not going to do that today. So we're going to go out, and Catie's going to help me now roll onto my back here. So we're going to go back onto the back so she can remove anything that's binding. What we could do before rolling here, we're not going to demonstrate it today, is I could get into an elbows and knees position or a kneeling position, but for the sake of safety, it is a bit tough. But for those of you that are really comfortable in yourself, Catie could help me by walking my elbows back. She would pull my hips back, and I would have a bolster behind my knees, and I would come up and get into a 90-degree position where I could work on moving my hips side to side. I could work on coming forward and back. I can work on circles. This could all be done in an elbows and knees position. And we're talking now about the developmental stages of human development and how babies develop. If you think about how a child develops, they start with being on their back, they figure out how to roll, and then they figure out how to load onto their knees, and then they figure out how to rock back into elbows and knees. They then get into hands and knees, where they then have the ability of their triceps to do that. They then get into sitting, and then they get into standing, then they get into walking. And what's kind of incorporated in all of that is when they get into the elbows and knees position, they think about the ability to be able to hip flex and crawl. So that could also be done. It's all very interesting how this all ties into each other. But now, so we are going to come. I'm going to get onto the right side of here, and Katie's going to help me roll. Oh, we're going to roll the other way.
Yeah.
And so now that we have me back on my back, and we've gone through the whole regiment of really stretching, movement prep, there's a lot of things that we can do here. And it could start with strength training work. So Catie, if we can show everybody kind of how these gloves work. They're made by Active Hands. Active Hands is a company that is from the UK. And so what these are for people who are quadriplegics and have a lack of hand dexterity. And so with this, we would remove my glove. And
This is what they look like.
And so they're made out of a soft neoprene material, which can prevent the rubbing for potential pressure sores. And so Catie will cinch them tight. And so actually got to rotate them around a little more. So right here. And so from here, Catie will get this. For me, I like it as tight as I can get it so they don't slip. Some people, that's not comfortable for them. And so now with these gloves, I can attach this to a handle to that of what we have over here in bands. I can attach it to a bar. If you're at the disposal of what you have at your house. If you have a wooden dowel, great. If you don't, maybe you can use a broom. And from here we could work on assisted sit-ups, overhead presses, bench presses. There's a variety of things that we can do, or we can hook these gloves up to the bands that we have over here. And with the bands, I can wrap it around the base of a bed, a pillar in the house, or wrap it around the partner's back. And that can be dangerous if the band were to ride up and get caught in the hair, which has happened before. But with that can also work on rows, and I can even come up into a seated position, work on rows. I can work on flies, opening up this way. There's just such a variety of things that you can do, even at the disposal of what we have here at our own house. And so with that, we kind of give you guys a good rundown of a lot of things that you can be doing here today. You're going to sit me up.
So you're not laying down talking.
And so it's a very dynamic routine, and it's one in which everybody can really do with the help of somebody who's willing to be a helping hand. I won't go as far to say that this is not rocket scientists work or anything. It's definitely tough work. It's physically demanding work, as Catie can probably tell you. But it's something that it puts me into a much better physical state where I'm not in so much pain. I'm a huge proponent that I believe that exercise can be among the most powerful medicines in the world. And for some of us, that is not the case that we live with. We live in an unfortunate reality that medication is the most powerful substance for us to live pain-free, to live stress-free, to live with no spasms and no tone. Fortunately for me, I've lived a near 13-year life in a chair without any medication of any such sort. And so I have a belief that exercise is a big contributing factor to that. Movement is medicine and movement is power. And from a circulatory standpoint, it allows for me to be in a better position to prevent blood clotting. When I am moving and I am circulating, I have better control of my blood pressure, my ability to project my voice. And also the biggest thing and the biggest secondary complication for all of us, bladder infections. When I'm circulating and I'm moving, my body oftentimes reacts with pushing urine out of my bladder. And when you have urine that sits in your bladder for long periods of time, it eats away at the bladder walls. And so it's very, very helpful for that as well. And so that was today's workout routine. And it was more of a stretching than workout routine. We kind of gave you ways that you can incorporate working out and strength training within that. And fortunately, when you have a great woman by your side, all things are possible.
Awesome. Thanks for joining. Hope you guys got something out of it and can use some of these stretches at home. As always, feel free to reach out. And if you have any questions, let us know.
Yeah, and this is, again, you can do this in the comfort of your bed as well. Pump it up to maximum stiffness if you can. And also using the edge of the bed to your advantage as well to stretch your biceps. And there's just so many things that you can do to be creative, but do it in a safe manner. Thanks for listening. Cheers.
Thanks, guys.